Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figure unboxing and review video. Now today we will be taking a look at the entire wave based off the upcoming Robert Pattinson-led The Batman movie. Now I personally could not be more excited both for the film and for these figures. We'll be reviewing The Batman, Catwoman, Riddler, and the Penguin, plus the unmasked variants of Bruce Wayne in the Batsuit and Selina Kyle. Now stay tuned to the channel because we'll also be reviewing the Drifter version of Bruce Wayne plus the Drifter Cycle and the Bat Cycle in an upcoming video. The best way to find out when that goes live is to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon down below. If you are looking to grab this wave, I'm pretty sure it's still available with toyswonderland.com. The link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. What we are going to do now though is get the box for Batman laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. Here of course we have the box art, and it's done in the usual multiverse style. An open window showcasing Batman inside, that stunning The Batman logo done in a vibrant red down below, Batman on the side of the box, and then an image of the figure himself. I am loving the figure photography that McFarlane are using on the back of the boxes. It's something new and something very creative. Now, as I alluded to in the intro, there is a variant of Batman. You can either get the fully masked, cowled version on the left, or you can go for the unmasked version. We will be taking a look at both throughout the course of the video, but we're not really here to spend a ton of time talking about the boxes. We're more here to take a look at the figures inside. Now, if you are picking this guy up locally, do make sure you hunt through the pegs and try to find the best version. What do I mean in saying that? Well, recently it seems like the second batch of these Batman figures have had some issues. The abs section has been flipped upside down, and there happens to be a cowl on the back of his collar. So just have patience, check the various copies that are there, and I'm sure you'll find one without those issues. First in-hand impressions of Batman though are pretty positive. I'm not loving the hand selection. We'll talk more on that a little bit later in the video. But we do of course have a few more characters to unbox, so moving on to Catwoman. This is one I have been super excited about. It's actually my first smaller scale Catwoman figure. You do have that same open window showcasing the figure inside, the Batman down below, her name on the side of the box, and then a stunning image of the figure herself. But interestingly enough, she's pictured with this closed or spooled up whip. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this figure actually doesn't even come with that. It's the unmasked version that comes with the spooled up whip. I'm not sure why they are picturing that particular accessory on the back of the box when you don't even get it with this figure. Not to say that that makes this figure any better or worse, but it's just something that if you saw on the back of the box, you got this figure home expecting full well to have that accessory, you may be a little bit disappointed that she indeed does not come with it. First in-hand impressions though are, just like Batman, relatively positive. One thing that McFarlane always does very well is texture, because this figure is covered in it. Now don't worry, we will be taking a look at the unmasked version as well in this video. But before we do that, we still have to unbox the Penguin and Riddler. Now the first thing that I noticed upon getting this box in hand is it's significantly heavier than the other releases. There must be a ton of plastic that's gone into making the Penguin. Open window showcasing the figure, the Batman, the Penguin on the side, and then of course a stunning image of the figure. Although he is pictured holding an umbrella, which unfortunately he doesn't come with. In fact, this figure doesn't really come with a ton. Having not yet seen the movie though, I don't know if that's something that's accurate for him to have, or if it's just the figure photographer taking some artistic license with their images. Nevertheless, I wouldn't be surprised if there will be a variant of the Penguin sometime down the line, maybe with a slightly different outfit still on this very solid body. Again, first-hand impressions are positive for the most part. I can already tell though that this guy is going to be fairly static. Moving on though to the last figure we need to unbox, which is of course the Riddler. I saved this guy for last because I'm super excited about this particular figure. Now it's a very unique and interesting take on the character. He pretty much looks like no other version of Riddler that I have ever seen. An open window where you can see him inside, the Batman, the Riddler, and an image of the figure on the back of the box. But once again, the photographer has taken some liberties with the image itself. He doesn't actually come included with the tape, and we do see that shot in the trailer. I was hoping that he was going to come with that pre-sculpted, maybe in some rubbery plastic, but unfortunately they decided not to. I suppose though, out of all of the accessories that have been pictured with the other characters that don't actually come included with them, the roll of tape isn't the biggest crime. I'm sure you could customize something and get it to look fairly decent. Speaking of looking decent, I am very impressed with the level of sculpted in detail on the outfit for Riddler. What we are going to do now though is get all of the accessories that come included with all of the figures in the wave laid out in the lightbox and take a closer look at everything they come with. Here we have all the parts and pieces. Now starting off with the display base first, every single figure in the wave comes with this exact same base, and I'm perfectly fine with that. It's simple yet very effective. A foot peg on one side, DC logo up the front, and it's a nice slim low profile, so it's not going to add a ton of height to your figures. Now starting off with Riddler, he of course gets the DC Multiverse trading card with the same image we saw on the back of the box, and then the data file on the other side. Feel free to pause to read. Interestingly enough, his real name is Edward Nashton, not Edward Nigma. Now you do get this. I'm not exactly sure if this is supposed to be some kind of snow or ice scraper or a spatula or even a mini shovel. We'll have to wait and see when the film comes out. Now as for Batman, if you get the standard version, you get this stunning image right here, or if you get the unmasked one, you get this image, both of which are of the actual figures. You also get the exact same read-up across both cards. Now, depending on which version of Batman you get, you will actually receive different accessories. The standard Batman gets his grappling gun, which does peg into his hand. You'll see that later on in the video, whereas the unmasked version gets what appears to be a batarang, but it does look awfully similar to his chest logo. Does that mean it can detach and be thrown at enemies? Well, again, we'll have to wait and see in the film. Depending on which version of Catwoman you get, you'll either get the unmasked Catwoman on the side of the building or the masked one. The read-up, once again, is exactly the same. Feel free to pause to read. You do, however, get different whips per Catwoman. This one comes with the unmasked version, it's nicely spooled up, whereas the regular version gets a fully opened up whip, a grip on one side, and then a kind of attachment looking piece on the other end. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but then again I'm not the biggest whip aficionado, so maybe it's something I'm just not aware of. For Penguin, that same image that we saw on the back of the box with him holding an umbrella that he doesn't come included with, and then a read-up on the other side. You don't get any accessories with Penguin though, except for some alternate hands. A finger gun hand, please let this not be the replacement going forward for actual guns. I understand if McFarlane is having a bit of a laugh and including these finger gun hands as real guns, but I'm just going to treat it as though he is pointing, plus you do get a regular closed fist. What we are going to do now though is get the figures themselves out here and take a closer look. Starting off with Batman first, here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that, although he is appearing slightly different to how he comes out of the box. More on that in just a second. Overall though, I love the way this guy looks. It comes down more so to the design of the Batsuit being so dramatically different to anything else we've seen in live action, but also the figure. They've captured the look quite well. Now, he isn't covered in paint. A little bit of paint could have gone a long way. Some silver chipping here and there, maybe a couple of buckles painted. Not to say that he looks horrible, because he absolutely doesn't, but I feel that in some areas he is a little bit lacking. Overall, I'm still very impressed. Next up, we have Catwoman, and she is awesome. I didn't have any doubt about that. I told you all earlier on I was super excited about this figure, and I'm pleased to report she can actually stand. I was worried that she wasn't going to be able to because of the super narrow and also tall heels that she's wearing, but no, if you spend some time getting the pose just right, she'll stand perfectly fine. Now, I do have a preference between the unmasked and masked versions. You'll find out which one I prefer in just a second. But overall, this figure gets a tick from me. A ton of texture, a real-world looking design for a classic DC Comics character that, in my eye, fits into the universe they're trying to build. Next up, we have Colin Farrell's Penguin, and this was one I was a little bit wary of. I didn't know what to expect in terms of articulation because I saw that big, thick, rubbery upper torso, and I kind of knew that he was going to be quite static. He is, don't get me wrong, you won't be able to get a ton of poses out of this guy, but the head sculpt I think has won me over. He also has a lot more bulk than your usual McFarlane Toys figure, which does appear to be accurate to the film. So even though he's not the most dynamic, he still is fairly accurate. I wish he'd have come with some more weapons, maybe a top hat, maybe an umbrella, or maybe even a gun. Nevertheless though, he still gets a tick from me. Moving on to the Riddler. This guy is awesome. I didn't expect to like this figure as much as I do. Yes, it's not the classic look for Edward Nygma or Edward Nashton in this instance, but the figure himself is done to an incredibly high standard. Now, if I showed you this shot without any context, you probably would assume this guy was a much higher quality and higher price point release. The jacket is done perfectly. It's the perfect blend between the rubbery overlay method and articulation, and you'll see that when we get to the articulation segment, plus they've captured a ton of detail on the surface. It looks very realistic. The rest of the figure is equally well done, even though you do have the pins in the legs and the arms for the joints. It still ticks a lot of boxes for me. And then we get to the head sculpt. Super creepy, super ominous, and totally something that I could see as a real-world Riddler, which is, I think, what they're trying to go for. What we are going to do now, though, is get Batman himself back out here, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. Here we have him up close and personal. Now in just a second we will be checking out a custom upgrade set that I got off the insanely talented OT Customs. I have popped the link to his website in the description below if you're like me and see these pieces as essential upgrades for this figure. Now starting off with the head sculpt, I love it. The likeness to Robert Pattinson is definitely there, the stitching is in all the right places and is accurate to the movie, plus the head sculpt fits in proportion to the rest of the body. Now, the likeness is best from around this angle, which is potentially why they printed the eyes to the side, so you are forced to display this guy at the best angle possible. Although, why then give him the grappling gun on this side? Because it's accurate, Justin, and yes, it totally is. But then you should print the eyes going the other way so he can actually look where he's going when he's grappling. Because right now, you can't actually have him doing that. Whether it's going straight forward or going straight up, he's always going to be looking the other direction. A bit of a weird choice in my opinion. I'm all for the side eye when it makes sense. If they just printed the eyes going off to the right, it would have worked perfectly fine. Now let's talk for a moment about the cape. There is some texture on the surface, it's a nice soft pliable rubber, and it does come around and peg in to the front there. It does sit a little bit low, however. In the movie, the cape does kind of sandwich underneath this chest armor. OT Customs also makes a custom cape, which could be worth checking out. As for the rest of the armor though, it looks awesome. He is cast from head to toe pretty much in a grey plastic. There are some paint applications such as the belt and these dart pieces, I would suppose, on his gauntlets, but other than that, he's just unpainted plastic. This is a customizer's dream. I am definitely going to go in and touch up the armor, do some silver dry brushing here and there, add the buckles and bits and pieces to get this guy to look as good as possible. Because everything is sculpted where it needs to be, it just needs a touch more paint. Now he does have that grappling gun which pegs into his hand. In the movie, I'm fairly sure the grappling gun slides down this rail and into his hand before being able to be used. I like that, it's something different and something unique, but I did also see that he has a holster down here on his leg. You can actually see there are straps here, but no holster. That is something that OT Customs has sorted out, and I'm super pleased to report that it fits this grappling gun. Again, we'll check it out in just a second. The belt itself is done in a glossy black paint, and you do have multiple little sections. None of this removes or detaches or is functional in any way, but it does break up the overall grey look of the suit. You also have a ton of sculpted in texture and detail for the undersuit itself, because technically these are all supposed to be armor plates over the top of kind of like a military style flight suit. Coming down to the boots, super straightforward. Some boot spats on top of some military or work style boots, plus you do have some detail on the surface with the laces and of course some toe articulation sculpted in. But for those of you who are itching to see the upgrade set, just like I am, and here we have it. Now thanks to OT Customs, finally, this version of Batman can throw a punch, because out of the box he came with a gripping hand and the flat palm hand for the grappling gun. I do not know how McFarlane didn't release this figure without closed fists. Now it's worth noting that these are prototypes, so the sizing and the finish may change ever so slightly, but in saying that, they look great. They're also an asymmetrical design. This side has some kind of clip or buckle on the outside, whereas the other doesn't. OT Customs spent a ton of time getting these hands to be as accurate to the screen-used gloves as possible, and they also sit a little bit higher up on the wrist pegs. Some people did complain his arms were slightly too long, so this does hopefully rectify that issue for some. The second upgrade though is the holster. As you can see, I now have his grappling gun very neatly holstered to his side, just like it's supposed to be. Thanks to McFarlane for including these two straps, so when you install the OT Customs holster, it looks very natural. He fully digitally sculpted this himself, so once again it fits the McFarlane grappling gun, but it's also super accurate to the real-life holster. There is some quilted texture on the outside, a buckle, and also a pouch on the front. Even though this isn't the most comprehensive upgrade kit in the world, it still, again, in my opinion, makes a huge difference. Next up, here we have the unmasked version of Batman. Now, from the neck down, the outfit is exactly the same as the standard release, meaning no holster and no closed fists. He does, however, come with 2 gripping hands, so he's perfectly positioned to ride the Batcycle out of the box, whereas the standard release came with that awesome flat palm hand for the grappling gun, but it meant he wasn't compatible with the Batcycle. They had to include another hand with the cycle itself. This guy, though, doesn't have that issue. Now let's talk about the real reason why you're probably wanting to pick this guy up. The head sculpt. Is it perfect? No. Is it good? Well, it depends on your definition of the word. It's okay, in my opinion. With some washes in the hair, perhaps it could look even better, and with a slightly more lifelike skin tone, because it's very flat and smooth. From some angles, yeah, I can see the Robert Pattinson likeness, but from others, I really start to lose it. The eyes are pointed off to the right side though, so if you wanted to give this guy the grappling gun, at the very least he will be looking in the same direction as he is aiming. I also like the black eyeshadow just like he would be wearing under the bat cowl. That's something that I've always wondered about in Batman movies. When the cowl comes off, so too does the makeup. It shouldn't really just disappear like that, treat it like war paint, and that's exactly what Matt Reeves did in this movie. Now, around the back, he does have the cowl. This is supposed to be here, it's on the image on the back of the box, this isn't a mistake, but for some reason, as I said earlier, the standard Batman figures are also coming with this cowl on the back. It's supposed to be there for the unmasked version, but definitely not for the standard. Next up, we have Catwoman. So far, I've been pretty impressed with this figure. Not as impressed, though, as I am with the unmasked version, which we'll take a look at in just a second. Now, starting off with the head sculpt first, yeah, okay, I can see Zoe Kravitz in that very small window where you can see her eyes, which are, yes, off to the side, just like Batman. But at the very least, we're getting some variety. They're not looking in the same direction as he is. I do like the facsimile of her ears being part of the balaclava. It's a nice touch, and there is a ton of texture on the surface. I also like that you can see her neck underneath the mask, and it's been fully painted in the same skin tone as that little section where her eyes are. The only complaint I have is that her mouth isn't exposed. For most of the promo images we've seen, her mouth is fully visible. I don't know if the bottom part of her mask gets torn away at some point, but I have also seen some images of her like this, so it's not to say that this isn't accurate. The rest of the outfit has a ton of texture on the surface, but it is all done in unpainted black plastic. We do have this grey V section that extends around to the back, and some glossy parts like her belt, her cuffs, and her collars up on top. The sculpt work is phenomenal, there's no two ways about it, but some extra paint and maybe some washes and a little bit of dirt and grime down on the base of the feet would have been a nice touch. Coming down to those feet, this figure is going to be a little bit tricky to get standing. I also hope that in the future they invent some kind of smaller hinge and swivel joint, because having this massive joint down here at the ankle is a little bit unsightly. Lastly, she does come with a closed fist on one side, so that gets a tick from me, and a gripping hand on the other, so that means she can hold her whip. But for those of you wondering how she compares to the unmasked version, she looks awesome. This head sculpt absolutely gets a tick from me. I can see the Zoe Kravitz likeness from pretty much every angle. The skin tone, the eyes, the mouth, and even the little bits of hair that we can see are very nicely applied. You can also see a lot more of her neck now that she doesn't have the low cut of the mask. All of it comes together perfectly. From a distance, yeah, that's undeniably Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. The rest of the outfit, though, is exactly the same as the other version. That's not a bad thing. Would I have liked maybe some battle damage or a little bit of variety? Yeah, absolutely. But still, this is a very strong release. I might even prefer it over the standard one, which is crazy for me to say, because I usually always go for masked variants. The hands are exactly the same, closed fist on one side, and gripping hand on the other. As for Penguin, being a relatively simple figure, the head sculpt has to do most of the talking. And I'm pleased to report that it does, and it does it well. If you handed someone this figure and told them, there you go, there's your Colin Farrell action figure, they probably wouldn't believe you. But that means this is even more accurate, because I don't believe it's even him wearing all those prosthetics on set. He does have some facial scarring, a big hook nose, an open mouth, and his eyes are printed off to one side. It won't work for everyone, I totally understand, but it does for me. It gives him a very menacing look. Now, the upper torso is covered in a very thick rubbery overlay. He's got a blue outer jacket, which does have a ton of wrinkling and detail sculpted into the surface. I particularly like the way the pocket is done, and the epaulette up on top, which blends perfectly into the upper part of the shoulder. He then has a grey suit jacket underneath that, plus a light purple shirt and a dark purple tie. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future we get another version of Penguin, maybe his eyes are going off to the other side, and they ditch this rubbery overlay to give him just a business shirt. I think you'd get a ton more articulation, and it would still be fairly faithful to what we've seen of the Penguin. Now, coming down to his pants, or I should say his rather thick legs, they do look like something you'd expect from the Penguin. You do have a line running down the front to simulate the crease in his business pants, and they do break at around the right spot on top of his shoes. They are nice thick chonky shoes, and you do have a grey spat. Very classic Penguin. Lastly, we have the Riddler. This is a very different and interesting take on the character. If you covered up that question mark and gave this to someone with them knowing nothing about the movie, they would probably struggle to tell you who this is supposed to be, let alone pick him out as Edward Nygma. Now, starting off with the head sculpt, you can very clearly see there is a sculpt underneath this translucent section on the back. I don't necessarily know what that's supposed to be. Did he sticky tape this mask to his head? I guess we'll have to wait and find out in the movie. Now, the mask itself is actually a real-world thing. This is a US military cold weather face mask. It does have this strip that covers over his mouth. It is accurate to the real world thing. He also has some clear frame glasses and some eyes that are printed underneath. Unfortunately, they are fixed in place. You cannot remove them. It's unique, to be sure, and honestly, very intimidating. If I saw this guy in real life, you bet I would run the other direction. Now, as for his jacket, it is green, of course. This is the Riddler, you have to have green somewhere, and then he has this question mark patch on the one side. This, as far as I'm aware, isn't super accurate. In all of the later promo work, the question mark is actually painted onto the jacket itself rather than having this patch. Maybe this is an earlier look and it changes throughout the film, but so far this does appear to be slightly inaccurate. The jacket itself does have a ton of sculpting on the surface. At a distance, it literally looks like a real jacket. You do have some grey up top and a lighter green paint for the hoodie underneath. Now, coming down to his pants, super simple. They're literally some black cargo pants, once again a ton of sculpted in detail up on top, but weirdly enough, the knee pad is super matte, but the upper part of the thigh and the lower section of the leg are super glossy. I will be spraying this with some matte coat to hopefully dull that down and make everything look a little bit more consistent. Lastly, coming down to his boots, some very high military style boots. It seems as though this guy has some kind of ties with the military. the face mask, the green jacket, the cargo pants, the military boots. There are a lot of interesting things going on. Unfortunately, on mine, the ankles are super loose. It's not something that you can really check before you buy your copy, so fingers crossed yours will fare a little bit better. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the entire wave standing together, and they look great, both individually and also as part of the ensemble. I wouldn't be surprised if you start off with Batman and think to yourself, oh, maybe I'll pick up Catwoman, she looks okay. And then it'll snowball from there. You'll need Riddler and Penguin and whoever else they decide to come out with, because these figures are addictive. They're relatively low price point, but still relatively high quality, and those two things don't often go together. They're all unique sculpts per character, meaning there isn't a ton of reuse here. Riddler is the tallest of the bunch. Then it goes to Batman and Penguin, who sit roughly around the same height, with Penguin maybe being a hair shorter, but he definitely is a lot wider, which does appear to be accurate to the movie. And then we get Catwoman, the thinnest and the shortest of the wave. I do like that we have a lot of variety in the heights and in the sculpts. Just going over articulation, starting with Batman. Now his head sculpt is on a ball joint, it does look forward and back, swivel and then pivot side to side. The arms do go up, although the shoulder pad pieces are attached to the bicep, so do make sure you are moving them out of the way before trying to move the arms. They will go forward and back, they are on a ball joint up at the shoulder, so you get a little bit of butterfly, swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow that does go way past 90, plus a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. The torso is on a ball joint up top and another down below, but mine doesn't really get a ton of range from the waist, it more so comes from the midsection. Swivel and then pivot side to side. The legs will go forward on soft ratchets to there, they will go out to there, a lot of swivel, surprisingly, at the upper thigh, a ratcheted double bend at the knee that does go past 90, hinge and swivel for the ankle, plus toe articulation. Next up we have Catwoman. Her head sculpt is also on a ball joint, but due to how low her balaclava sits, and because she is wearing multiple collars, she doesn't get a ton of range forward and back, swivel or pivot side to side. The arms do go up to there, they will go forward and back. You do have a little bit of pivot up here at the shoulder for some butterfly, swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow that goes way more than 90, plus hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. The torso once again has multiple joints, one at the midsection then one at the waist, crunching forward a little bit, going back slightly further, swivel and then pivot side to side. The legs do go forward on ratchets to there, they will go out to there, a little bit of swivel at the upper thigh, ratcheted double bend at the knee that does go the full way, hinge and swivel down here for the ankle, plus toe articulation. Now with Penguin, due to the design concessions they made to get his upper torso to look as seamless as possible, you're not going to get a ton of range, but I guess we kind of knew that going in. Starting off with the head sculpt, it looks forward and back a little, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms do go up to there on soft ratchets, they do go forward and back, a teeny amount of butterfly up at the shoulder, swivel at the bicep, a ratcheted single bend at the elbow that does get you to 90, plus a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. Now, all of the joints are actually there, they're just hidden underneath this thick rubbery layer, so you do get a teeny amount of crunch forward and back, swivel and then some pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there comfortably, although you could push it a little bit further. They will go out to there, a little bit of swivel, but most of the swivel actually comes from the knee joint. Speaking of the knee joint, it's incredibly stiff and it only bends to roughly 90, but I guess that's a good thing because this guy is a relatively hefty figure, You don't want any loose joints, especially at the knees, because he would just bend backwards. Hinge and swivel for the ankle, plus some toe articulation. Lastly, we have the Riddler. Starting off with the head sculpt, forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms go up to there, they will go forward and back, a tiny bit of motion up here at the shoulder, swivel at the bicep, a double bend at the elbow that does go way past 90, but looks fairly ugly while doing it, a hinge and swivel for the wrist peg. Now the upper torso is similar to Penguin, although there is a ton more space underneath, so you do get to make use of those joints for crunching forward and back, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs do go forward to there before springing back down a little, going out to there, a teeny amount of swivel up at the thigh, a double bend at the knee that does go past 90, hinge and swivel for the ankle, plus toe articulation. Just wrapping up on the DC Multiverse, the Batman wave. Now going into this, I was really excited because the hype for the movie is at an all-time high. So it turns out that this was the perfect time to drop this particular wave. Does that mean the figures themselves are perfect by extension? No. Obviously they're not, but they are darn good. Some are stronger than others, such as the Batman. He kind of by default has to be the best in the wave, seeing as he's the marquee character. And he is. He's awesome. The outfit looks great. The sculpting is on point. What he lacks in paint applications, he more than makes up for in sculpted in texture and detail. The head sculpt absolutely is a dead ringer for Robert Pattinson, even though he does have the side eye, which I know isn't for everyone. But out of the box, he should have come with the holster and closed fists. I don't know why they didn't do that. Thank goodness for OT Customs, because without those upgrades, this guy just makes a little bit less sense. Once again, I've popped the link in the description below. The unmasked version of Batman, I think, is the inferior of the two. He does come with the Batarang, which is a great accessory, which should have come with the standard one as well, in my opinion, but the unmasked head sculpt needs a little bit of work. Moving on to Catwoman, she is great. It's the complete opposite as to Batman. The unmasked version of Selina Kyle is my favourite. The likeness is on point, the paint applications are crisp and clean, and once again the body is sculpted to perfection. It looks proportionate, there is a ton of surface texture and detail, and even though there isn't a bunch of paint here, it's still painted in all the right places to have a decent impact. The accessories, I don't necessarily think are a huge win. The whip could have been a wire, then you could have had way more fun with it. It's kind of pre-posed in this awkward position, it doesn't really work for me. I do prefer the whip that's spooled up that comes with the unmasked Selina Kyle. Next up we have the Penguin, who I unfortunately think is the weakest in the wave, just due to the fact that he comes with pretty much nothing and he can do pretty much nothing. He's a solid hunk of plastic with a couple of joints here and there. You're mostly getting movement out of the arms and the head. I would have loved if they'd done a version that has just a business shirt as well as a variant, so we could have opted to get that version instead. But for now, at least the likeness is good and the outfit looks decent. But if you're expecting to get poses out of him, then this isn't the figure for you. The perfect blend, though, between what they were trying to achieve with Penguin and the maximum range of motion like with Batman is the Riddler. He looks great, he comes with that weird snow ice scraping spatula thing, but he looks exactly like how you'd expect him to. I would have loved to have seen the roll of tape, but I'm not complaining. He's still an awesome release, and I'm glad he's in this first wave. I cannot wait to see who is coming out later on in future waves. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the movie. Now, these, I'm pretty sure, are still available from toyswonderland.com. Link for that is in the description below. They have 12-month installment plans and an awesome reward system. While you're down there, check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.